Hey folks, so the Venezuelan election is coming up this weekend, and I've got to tell you there has been an endless amount of fake news in American media regarding this upcoming election in Venezuela. So I want to go over some of the key points. Now, one thing that we've heard a lot, and it's been repeated in American media a lot, is this idea that in Venezuela, people get their food ration card, which is issued to citizens so they can get free food, basically. And government employees there's a wide level of government employment. A lot of people have been employed by the government. And the story is that supposedly in Venezuela, if you vote a certain way, you'll lose your government job or your ration card will be taken away. Well, that's absurd. I'm telling you this as someone who has been to Venezuela, has visited the office of what they call the CNE, or the National Election Center. They have secret ballots in Venezuela. Government bureaucrats are not following people to the voting booth, looking at how they vote, and then taking their cards away. That's a lie. That's just simply a lie. They have secret ballots there. And the idea that, do you know the level of monitoring that would require if they were to follow every citizen into the voting booth, look over their shoulder, determine how they vote, and on that basis determine whether or not they can have a ration card or have a job? That's just a plain, straight-up lie. They're lying. Now, there is a widespread understanding that if the opposition were to be victorious, people would probably lose their ration cards because that would fit the agenda of austerity that's being pushed by the opposition. That's been their grievance all along, is they don't like the fact that the socialist government is feeding people and taking care of people and providing education, and they don't like that. However, at no point there's no government bureaucrats following people into the voting booths and threatening to take their cards away. That's a lie. But I've seen that in the American media. I actually saw that in the Financial Times. Now, there's another falsehood, which is people say that all the opposition candidates have been barred from participating in the elections. That's not true. The only candidates that have been barred are the ones who have openly called for violence and participated in violence. There's been some violence in Venezuela. A number of police officers have been killed. A lot of trade union leaders have been assassinated. They've actually strung wires across intersections to behead police on motorcycles. Hospitals have been bombed. Public buses have been bombed. Universities have been bombed. And if the opposition leaders, the main opposition forces, have openly called for that kind of violence, and because of that, they're not allowed to participate in the election. If you call for violence against elected officials in Venezuela, you're disbarred. There are a number of opposition candidates, and the Wall Street Journal today ran a very big article promoting one of them, Henry Falcone. Henry Falcone is an opposition candidate. He's getting a lot of support. They ran this whole big article promoting Henry Falcone. You'd think, if this was a staged election with no opposition, why is the Wall Street Journal promoting an opposition, if it's not a real election? Come on, there is a real opposition in Venezuela. There are electoral opposition that's participating. Henry Falcone is running, and interestingly, it notes that even though Henry Falcone's platform, Henry Falcone calls for the implementation and the adoption of the dollar as Venezuela's currency. Henry Falcone calls for Venezuela joining the IMF in order to get a bailout. However, even Henry Falcone, even the main opposition guy in this upcoming election, says that he is a socialist, says he believes in socialism. So all these people that are saying, oh, the Venezuelans are suffering and dying because of socialism, oh, they hate socialism, they hate communism, they want American capitalism, that's a lie. That's a lie. Now, there are a lot of rich kids living in New York City who have fled Venezuela, who, used to be part of this ultra elite that used to run Venezuela and was working with the United States to gut the place and let it be looted of its oil. Yeah, they love American capitalism. And sure, if you meet somebody on the streets of New York City or, in Miami, they're going to tell you, oh, yeah, Venezuelans hate socialism, they love capitalism. But your average Venezuelan, who's not a billionaire, who's not a millionaire, who doesn't come from an elite family, they love socialism. There is frustration with the Maduro government. There is frustration with the United Socialist Party. There are clearly problems in how the country is currently being run, but they're facing a siege. Let's be real about that. Their country has basically, in addition to the dramatic oil price drop of 2014, they're facing economic sanctions, they're facing internal sabotage. At the same time, they're being criticized for allegedly not having, enough food, even though there is food distributions and food warehouses and such. At the same time, we've seen the U.S. Office of Foreign Assets Control actually harass people that are trying to bring food into Venezuela. So the country is facing an all-out political siege. Every effort is being made to crash their economy, to surround them and try to destabilize the country. But even in spite of that, the main opposition that's participating in the election call themselves socialists. Nobody in Venezuela is going around saying, let's privatize everything. No one in Venezuela is going around saying, oh, every man for himself, Milton Friedman, free to choose, libertarianism. Nobody is saying that. Even the opposition that's trying to get people to vote for them is saying that they believe in socialism. So what you've heard about Venezuela in the American media is just false. There are elections coming up. They have a big crisis in the country, but they're going to resolve it, and they're going to figure out how to do it. But, you know, Wall Street and the billionaire monopolist elite is trying to destabilize the country. They want to bring the government down, and they want to create further chaos. And the people of Venezuela are resolved that they don't want to let that happen.